boys and girls, welcome to my channel. I'm ForClassic and welcome to BenchART. So for today what I do every day is Project Cars 3, a game developed by Slightly Mad Studios, and it is using its internal technology, which is Madness Engine. So Slightly Mad Studios were the producers and developers of Need for Speed Shift 1 and 2, also Project Cars 1 and 2, and the disaster that was Fast and Furious Crossroads. So let's take a look on the settings. So for this video I will be using 720p with the minimum settings, and this game, it is something kind of hard to run because it depends a lot on the weather system and on the amount of cars that you have on screen. It can make entirely all the difference in the world regarding performance, alright? So let's take a look on the requirements. So this game asks for an i5 from the 3000 generation, 8 gigs of RAM, so far so good. But for the graphic card, it does ask for a minimum of a GTX 680, which despite it is an old graphic card, this was a top tier graphic card, which even today it can deal with pretty much all the games available at the moment, alright? It is old, but it was a capable graphic card. So I decided to test with two different settings. I decided to test it out with 720p minimum settings and 720p low settings. So with the minimum settings, I got an average of 47 frames per second with a 1% of 29. So it's pretty much an experience above 30 frames per second and an average mostly around 50. While the 720p low settings, you can see that the game does drop below 30 frames per second. So as you could saw on the graph, the performance profile, it was very different. So at the beginning, to the half of the graph, you could saw that the performance was much lower. That's because I decided to try out two different tracks with two different profiles of performance. So what I mean by this is that the first track that I did try out, it was Tuscany, raining and with 31 cars on screen, starting on last position. As you can see on the video, this is pretty much the worst case scenario that you are going to get in the game. And the second track, I decided to test a more regular track, which was Silverstone with 15 cars off screen, alright, and dry weather. And the performance, it was pretty much the double than what I see in here. So the issue with this is that I'm not really sure how many times you will have tracks on the career mode that it is raining and full of cars, because if that happens, it makes entirely sense for you to go with minimum settings, because if there is tons of tracks with wet floor and tons of cars on screen, then the low settings will struggle, since you can't have 30 frames per second all the time at least. So it is a disaster if you go with the low settings and you have a big amount of these tracks. But if you don't, and this never happens on the career mode, I guess you can play with the low settings. So the difference between minimum and low are quite noticeable. For example, on the minimum settings, you don't get grass on the floor. Also, you don't get shadows, which is very important. It isn't really noticeable on this Tuscany track because it is raining, but as soon as you get to a clear day with sun environment, you can clearly notice the lack of shadows of the cars and the environment. So it is up to you to decide what you do feel that it is best for you. But let's talk now a little bit about Project Cars 3. There was a lot of stuff that did change about Project Cars, and I really want to talk about it because it is important and I think you should. I think it's a good idea to talk a little bit about the story of Slightly Mad Studios. So I remember when Slightly Mad Studios did develop Need for Speed Shift 1 and Need for Speed Shift 2, and I remember Slightly Mad Studios to complain against EA Games because they wanted to make a simulation game with all the bells and checkboxes, alright? That a simulation game needed, and they created a crowdfunding, they exited EA Games, and they created the marvelous Project Cars and Project Cars 2, which both of these games I haven't on my Steam account, and they are great simulation games. They have its own defects, of course, but they are amazing. They are more simulation than Gran Turismo, they are more simulators than Forza Motorsport, but still they are not as much simulation as Assetto Corsa, which enables you to be able to play the game with a gamepad, despite might be a little bit tough for many people, but it was a hardcore simulation game. So this doesn't make any sense because Project Cars 1 and Project Cars 2 both were hardcore simulation games, and now I hope in Project Cars 3 And this is no longer a simulation game. This is an arcade game that it is pretty much like Grid or Need for Speed Shift, which is a little bit funny because they exit EA Games because they wanted a true simulation. And now this game looks again like Need for Speed Shift. But what really pisses me off about this game, it is not the game itself. I do enjoy the game, alright? It is a good arcade game if you are into arcade gaming. This game, it is very good, alright? It is at the same level of Grid or Need for Speed Shift. I really enjoyed the game a lot. But using Project Cars' name to release the game doesn't make any sense. They could make something like Dirt, where they do separate which ones are the simulation and which ones are the arcade. So Dirt 4 and Dirt 5 and Dirt 2 and Dirt 3 and Dirt 1, all these games were arcade-ish. And Dirt 5 will be also arcade-ish. Alright? While Dirt Rally, it was always revealed as a simulation game. So they could do this. They could say something like Project Cars Unleashed or Project Cars Turbo, anything that would resemble an arcade game, and they could create two different games than giving this Project Cars name as Project Cars Free, because people that will buy Project Cars Free without seeing this video or seeing any other video or just checking a little bit over the internet expecting an hardcore simulation game, they will find a Need for Speed Shift in here or a Grid, which doesn't make any sense. People will feel robbed and tricked and cheated. So for me, I really do like the game. I think the game, it is a pretty good arcade game. You unlock your own cars, you buy cars, you have a very nice career mode, you can modify your own cars. So it is a pretty good arcade game, but giving the name of Project Cars Free, again, this doesn't make any sense at all. And that it is really killing my head in here, because I'm pretty sure a lot of people will feel shitted when they buy this game expecting a simulation game. But at least not all the bad news are bad news, because for all the people that complained about Project Cars handling that it was too complicated, so go ahead now. The game, it is now much more easier to play. I was playing this with a gamepad with a professional experience presets, which is not the most difficult presets to play, but still it was very easy to play like this. So again, this is a full arcade game now, and that really blows my mind. Despite the game, it is awesome, it is an awesome arcade game, but again, this is not a simulation game anymore. Alright, that's what you should know. So let's talk a little bit about the price. So at the moment, this game costs on Steam $59.99 for the regular version. There is even a deluxe version that costs $89.99 if you want to buy it. But honestly, I think you should buy through Greenman Gaming, which is offering a 15% discount, which means that instead of paying $59.99 for the game, you can pay $15.99. So it's a €9 discount. I think it is worth it in case you want to get the game. Alright, the deluxe edition, for example, it is also much more cheaper. So instead of $89.99, it costs $76.49. So in my opinion, it is worth it for buying through Greenman Gaming. Greenman Gaming, it is a fully certified online store. This is not a gray market store like Kinguin or G2A. Keep that in mind. This is a full certified store where you buy the game and you activate the key that they will send you through email on Steam. So it is exactly the same thing as buying on Steam, but it is way more cheaper, as you can see. So take advantage of this sale because it is a nice discount, and you can save money just buying through Greenman Gaming, which I always do recommend when there is a nice discount. Alright, so guys, I think that's all that I want to talk about Project Cars Free. Hope you keep enjoying the rest of the video, and I do hope to see you soon. Goodbye.
Great job.